Even before Jamestown or the Plymouth colony, the oldest permanent European settlement in what is now the United States was founded in September 1565 by a Spanish soldier named Pedro Menendez de Aviles in St. Augustine, Florida. Menendez picked the colony's name because he originally spotted the site on August 28th. The feast day of St. Augustine Menendez's expedition wasn't the first group of Spanish explorers who tried to start a colony in Florida, which Juan Ponce de Leon had claimed for Spain back in 1513. And unlike other colonizers, he wasn't out to find gold or set up a trading network with the native tribes. Instead, Menendez's primary mission was simple: get rid of French Huguenot colonists who were trying to usurp the Spanish claim. The previous year, the French had established an outpost at Fort Caroline, near present-day Jacksonville. A French base in Florida posed a potential threat not just to Spanish territorial claims, but also to the Spanish treasure fleet that sailed from South America and Mexico along the Florida coast before heading across the Atlantic to Spain. Spain's King Philip II wanted the French threat eliminated, particularly because the settlers were Protestants and, to Philip, a Catholic, that made them intolerable. Spanish colonists, outnumbered, get lucky. Menendez, almost identi, succeed. Philip wanted him to destroy the French colony before France could send military forces to Florida to protect it. But by the time Menendez arrived in Florida in August 1565, he discovered that a force of French reinforcements had arrived before him. According to David Arbesk, an associate professor of Spanish at the University of South Florida and editor and translator of Pedro Menendez de Aviles, a new manuscript, an account of the expedition by Menendez, es brother-in-law, Gonzalo Solis de Maras. Advertisement. He went up to the fort by ship, where he discovered that the French had a very large fleet, Arbesk explains. So he retreated to a place that he had discovered the week before and had called St. Augustine, and waited for the French to attack Menendez. And his men were badly outnumbered and pretty much defenseless. But then Nietzsche dealt Menendez a lucky break. The French fleet appears and is prepared to crush the Spaniards, when at that exact moment, a large storm or hurricane blows the French fleet to the south and sinks them, saving the Spaniards from disaster. Arbesu. Instead of being slaughtered, all that Pedro Menendez had to do in the next couple of days was to walk up to Fort Caroline, which now had very few soldiers inside, and conquer it without even shedding a drop of Spaniards' blood, says Arbesk. It appears the enemy did not perceive their approach until the very moment of the attack. As it was very early in the morning and it rained in torrents, Francisco Lopez de Mendoza, Grazos, the expedition's chaplain, later wrote, the greater part of the soldiers of the fort were still in bed. Some arose in their shirts, and others, quite naked, begged for quarters. But, in spite of that, more than 140 were killed. The chaplain praised Menendez for the ardent desire which he has to serve our Lord in destroying the Lutheran heretics, the enemies of our holy Catholic religion. Matanzas, inlet named for slaughter. When Menendez got back to his encampment at St. Augustine, local Indians told him about seeing white men walking on the beach south of St. Augustine. Pedro Menendez realizes that these are the Frenchmen who had been blown away in the storm, Arbesk explains. Menendez rushed to the location and found some shipwreck survivors who had lost their weapons and food in the storm, according to a National Park Service account. Mendoza, the chaplain, asked for permission to offer the Frenchmen a chance to survive if they converted to Catholicism. 16 of them accepted, and the other 111 were killed. 2 weeks later, French commander Jean Ribaut and his surviving men showed up on the beach as well. The Spanish force offered them the chance to surrender, and the French accepted. Menendez's men then bound them and stabbed Ribaut to death before executing the rest of their captives, by beating them to death with clubs and hacking them with axes. As Jacques Lemoyne de Morgues, a French artist who heard about the killings from a sailor who had somehow escaped, later wrote, the inlet where the killings took place was named Matanzas, the Spanish word for slaughters, had it not been for the hurricane. Pedro Menendez's expedition would have probably failed, as all the others before him, and Florida would have been a French colony. Arbesk says, St. Augustine becomes center for Spanish power in Florida advertisement instead. After the slaughter, The Spanish stayed in St. Augustine to establish a permanent colony to deter more French from settling. Philip's support for the effort in successfully establishing a lasting settlement were unelected.